All right, welcome back to the Press Box Podcast. This is episode number 41, and in this episode, we're going to continue with our World Series bracket, where we break down the Ultimate World Series champion since 1970, so from 1970 to 2009. And this episode will feature our quarterfinal matchups. If you missed our first episode where we went through the round of 16, you can check that out on our Apple Podcast page. But in this episode particularly, we delve deeper into the matchups, have a few tougher matchups in the first round, and we'll see where the discussion takes us. It should be pretty fun. And without further ado, let's get into it right now on the Press Box Podcast.
Okay, we're back on the Press Box Podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Ralph Miranda, along with my co-host, Joseph Miranda, and we're in the middle of our Champions Bracket World Series 1970 to 2019. I know most of you who are listening today heard our first round of 16 analysis, but for those of you who might be joining us, what we're doing is an analysis of the champions of the World Series from 1970 to 2019. And again, what we did was the three of us, Joseph, myself, and our producer Nathan, each looked over the World Series champions for each year from 1970 to 2019. We each picked 8 National League teams that won the World Series during that span and 8 American League teams that won the World Series during that span. We then compared our 3 lists, looked for teams that were on all 3 lists, and they obviously were in the tournament, and then looked at teams that might have been on 2 lists, or maybe all of us only had 1 team on a list that on our list. So then we decided on 8 teams, 8 from the National League, 8 from the American League who won the World Series. We seeded them based on regular season wins, and then we went head-to-head in our round of 16. So our last podcast a few days ago, the round of 16, we had the number 1 seed on the American League side, the 1998 Yankees, taking on the 8th seed 1974 Oakland A's. The Yankees won that. We decided the Yankees would come out victorious. They advanced to the quarterfinals, winning that series 4-2. Then it was the 4th seed 2009 New York Yankees taking on the 5th seed 1977 New York Yankees. The 2009 New York Yankees came through to the quarterfinals, winning that series 4-2. Then we had the 3 seed 1984 Detroit Tigers taking on the 6th seed 2004 Boston Red Sox. Joseph and I both agreed that the 2004 Boston Red Sox would advance, winning that series 4-3. And then the final American League matchup, the 2 seed 1970 Baltimore Orioles taking on the 7th seed 1992 Toronto Blue Jays. The 1970 Baltimore Orioles advanced rather easily, winning that series 4-1. So that set up our quarterfinal matchups in the American League, which we will discuss first here today. The number 1 seed New York Yankees of 1998 taking on the 4th seeded New York Yankees of 2009. And then in the bottom half of the bracket, it'll be the 2004 Boston Red Sox, the 6th seed, taking on the 1970 Baltimore Orioles, the 2 seed. So, Joseph, let's get started with that. We'll discuss the National League when we're ready to go there. Okay, we got the 98 Yankees and the 2009 Yankees.
1998 New York Yankees won 114 games, lost 48. First in the AL East. They won the divisional series, swept it 3-0 over the Texas Rangers. They won the championship series 4-2 over the Cleveland Indians. And they swept the World Series 4-0 over the San Diego Padres. And their 2009 counterpart, New York Yankees, won 103 games, lost 59, first in the AL East. They swept the divisional series 3-0 over the Minnesota Twins. They won the championship series 4-2 over the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And they won the World Series 4-2 over the Philadelphia Phillies.
Okay, Joseph, you want to get us started?
Okay, so first thing that comes to mind in this matchup is the overlap in players we have.
Yes.
We have Derek Jeter and Jorge Posada on both teams in the starting lineup. And then the pitching side, you have Andy Pettitte and Mariano Rivera. who are members of both teams.
Right.
So I guess you can say they kind of cancel each other out. Although, and even their seasons, like Rivera's season, very similar.
Very similar.
Jeter's very similar. See, Posada, not too dissimilar either. So, I mean, you're pretty much having the same type of performances there. Also, Joe Girardi, backup catcher in '98, manager of 2009.
So he's going to have a tough series.
Yeah, tough duties for him. All right, so...
let's be honest, though. You can probably manage a game from behind the plate.
That's why...
The manager just sits there.
Yeah,
well, they said the best managers were catchers.
That's right.
They said
and
that.
he was a backup catcher.
Yeah.
So Posada would be catching most of the time.
And before he comes out of the clubhouse, he sets the lineup, pins in the dugout, then he goes and does his thing.
Exactly. It's not that difficult. Right.
This stands out as a pretty even matchup for me right off the bat.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Lineups, both pretty formidable. I think the '09 lineup had a little bit more power. As you see in some of the numbers here. As far as the pitching goes, yeah, I think I give a little bit of the edge to the '98 team just because I think that they're going to be more consistent, especially in the playoffs. Whereas again, we touched on this a little bit last time, but AJ Burnett, you never really know what you're going to get out of him.
Right.
Same with Josh Chamberlain or Phil Hughes,
right?
Who can give you really good performances, but kind of up in the air. Andy Pettit's always going to give a solid one. CC Sabathia is an ace. You got a number of guys, the '98 team you can go to that are you can count on pretty more consistently, I think. Yeah,
I agree with that 100%. I mean, you look at Andy Pettitte, as you said, consistent performer. In the playoffs, I think he has the most playoff wins of any pitcher, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you're going to count on him. But you look at that Yankee '98 Yankee rotation. David Wells, David Cohn, two crafty pitchers who both pitched perfect games during that season. And Orlando Hernandez, we talked about him last time in the matchup. El Duque, I mean, he's the kind of guy that, when it comes playoff time, he's going to nail it down. I mean, he's going to be really locked in. And then you look at the bullpen, you had Graham Lloyd, the lefty that you can bring in to face lefties with a 1.67 ERA. Just overall, I think a better lineup. The other thing that I think weighs into this as well is you're looking at a '98 New York Yankees team that was coming off. They had won 12 straight World Series games. They swept the '96, or they swept the last four in '96. They swept they were 8 games. They swept the '98 World Series, so they had 8 straight World Series victories. Of course, they went on to sweep in '99 and win the first 2 in 2000. So they won 14 straight World Series games, which I think to me is just a phenomenal statistic. And then you also look at guys like Posada and Jeter. It's hard to say what I'm about to say, but in '98, those guys were in their prime. I mean, they were hitting their stride. Whereas come 2009, still excellent players. But remember, Posada was only 3 years away from retirement. Jeter was 5 years away from retirement. And Rivera was only 4 years away from retirement. So having said all that, having looked at the pitching staffs, and then you look at the lineups. I mean, you look at the Yankee lineup in '09. I mean, take Posada and Jeter out because they cross over in both. But you got Nick Swisher, Melky Cabrera, Johnny Damon. Look at the '98 Yankees: Paul O'Neill, Bernie Williams, Scott Brocious, Darryl Strawberry. I just think in pressure situations, I would rather have those guys at the plate than the other guys at the plate.
I can't disagree with that, but then again, I mean, and then again, you've got some all-time great players in the '09 team. You've got Alex Rodriguez, who and that postseason was pretty clutch. I mean,
yes, he was.
Much has been made about his failure to produce in the postseason, but
yes, he was.
That postseason he came through.
Yes, he did.
Hideki Matsuri was a World Series MVP in that
he was
series and had a lot of good years for the Yankees. I think this might be one of the closest matches we had. I'm not ready to just hand it over to the '98 team. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not ready to hand it over to them, but obviously we've got to pick a winner. Yeah. So I think we have to find some common ground here that we can assess it on. I mean, I think you got to look at matchups. I mean, let's look at the 2009 lineup. I mean, you got basically it's hard to pitch around the team. You had 4 guys that were switch hitters. So basically, you could have 7 lefties at the plate at any one time, or you could have 6 righties at the plate of anyone. So it's hard to match up if you get my drift. The only thing that I think you can look at is Johnny Damon, who was clutch in the playoffs, and Matsui are lefties. So you could bring in a Graham Lloyd or a Mike Stanton to face those guys in a key situation. You look at the Yankees of '98. You got 4 righties in the lineup and 3 lefties. You got 2 switch hitters, so you got the same type thing. But if you look at the switch hitters, Bernie Williams and Jorge Posada, hard to get those guys out with a specialist. But you got Paul O'Neill at the left side of the plate, Tino Martinez, and Darryl Strawberry. Of course, you got Tim Raines, a switch hitter that you can bring in any particular time. So,
and Chili Davis, switch hitter.
And Chili Davis, that's exactly right, who was also a switch hitter. And Chili was pretty clutch in those playoffs as well. I don't know. I mean, gosh, I just don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're able to assess it this way, but the 2009 Yankees, that team was probably pretty similar for a few years. They lost the divisional round in 2007. They failed to make the playoffs in 2008. 2009, they brought Teixeira and Sabathia over, and they were able to win the World Series. But then in 10 and 11, they couldn't get it done. We talked about this last time. They lost to the Rangers both years, and then in 12 they lost to the Tigers in the ALCS, and then 13 they failed to make the playoffs again.
That's a good point.
You look at the '98 Yankees, World Series winners '96, lost the ALCS in '97, World Series '98, '99, 2000, 2001. I mean, that was a dynasty.
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, they probably find a way to get it done here.
That's right. That's right.
So I'll say '98 Yankees in 7 games.
And the other thing I'll say too is that team, like you said, they find a way to get it done. And I remember Derek Jeter saying, at one time when somebody hit a game-winning home run, if you just wait long enough, the ghosts will show up. The Yankees of that time, they always found a way to win. And that's what I love to watch, is that they never were out of a game, no matter what the score was. So I would tend to agree with you. I would go with the '98 Yankees in a very, very close 7-game series. Yeah. So are we okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to enter them into our bracket here. The 1998 New York Yankees will advance. And by the way, if you're listening at home, as we've said, go on to Twitter. Our Twitter account is @PressBoxPod. The brackets will be up there. You can either agree with us, disagree with us, or is there a team we missed? Maybe some analysis that we didn't touch on that you have that would be helpful. So go ahead and do that for us. So the New York Yankees, the number 1 seed, will advance, and they'll win a very close 4-3 series. Okay, so that takes care of that matchup.
All right, next matchup. The 2004 Boston Red Sox won 98 games, lost 64, second in the AL East. Swept the divisional series 3-0 over the Anaheim Angels. Won the championship series 4-3 over the New York Yankees, and they swept the World Series 4-0 over the St. Louis Cardinals. And they're facing off against the 1970 Baltimore Orioles, who won 108 games, lost 54, first in the AL East. No divisional series that year. They won the championship series 3-0 over the Minnesota Twins, and they won the World Series 4-1 over the Cincinnati Reds. So what is this? One versus? What's the no?
1 versus 6. You mean? Oh, I'm sorry. 2 versus 6.
2 versus 6.
Yeah, seeding. Right. Correct.
So the Orioles were 2.
The Orioles were the 2 seed.
Versus
That's correct.
6. Boston Red Sox.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, Joseph, your initial thoughts on this series?
Okay, so the series. Let's look at the pitching first here. You got Schilling and Martinez, who are 2 aces.
Right.
Martinez is a little bit past his prime.
Right.
But the Orioles that season especially arguably had 3 aces.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on 20, 24, and 24 game winners, 3 of them. And then you have Jim Palmer, who's an all-time great. That season with the 2.71 ERA also.
Right.
Pitching, and you look at some of these bullpen ERAs too here.
Right.
With guys that had 60, 55 innings, all right around 3 or under 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pitching a little bit favors the Orioles, although, as we said in the past, you could get a dominant start out of Schilling, Martinez, and even a Wakefield knuckleball that's really on, and make a good case for their staff too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could. I mean, I think it's a little hard for me to analyze relief pitchers' ERAs only because, remember, the 70 Baltimore Orioles played before the designated hitter, all right? Whereas after that, you had the designated hitter, which meant in the American League, your ERAs are always going to be higher than the National League because of that. Okay, but let's forget about that for a minute. I mean, I think if you look at this pitching set, this series would open up in Baltimore since they were the higher seed. You look at the Red Sox lineup. Your power hitters: Ortiz, 41 home runs; Ramirez, 43 home runs. I think the Orioles would start Cuellar and McNally in Game 1 and 2. That's just my guess. The only reason I say that is they're both lefties, and you could probably neutralize Ortiz in that situation. I don't know. To me, that Oriole pitching staff just stands out a little bit more than the Red Sox pitching staff does. And then you look at the lineups. I don't know. I mean, I just think we talked about this last time. I mean, you look at the Red Sox lineup. You got Ortiz, who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, I guess. Manny Ramirez, who could be a Hall of Famer. You look at could be. Yeah. You look at the Orioles. Boot Powell, Brooks Robinson, Frank Robinson, Paul Blair. I mean, these guys were just, Eldrod Hendricks was a tremendous catcher.
You bring up a good point. So are we saying that Orioles home games are not going to use a DH?
Well, that's a good point. I don't know how we should play it. I mean, we didn't discuss that last time. That I think you have to be consistent, don't you? I mean, you have to run it like you would I don't know. I mean, would we use it or would we not use it?
How they do it in the World Series, right?
Well, but that's national versus American, right? This is both American League teams. The only problem is we have one American League team in our final four on the American League side that didn't have a DH when they played. So I'd say we have to let them use a DH.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah. So if they use a DH, then you're looking at Merv Rettenman or somebody else to come in there and take that spot.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. I know you probably wouldn't agree with what I'm about to say, because at that time when this happened, you were a Red Sox fan. But in my heart, I mean, don't get me wrong. What the Red Sox did was phenomenal, coming back over the Yankees from 3-0. But they should have lost that series. Okay, I mean the Yankees had plenty of opportunities in that series to win it.
It's arguably more impressive that they won it.
Don't get me wrong. It is. But I just think the Orioles are a more complete and better baseball team than the 2004 Boston Red Sox are. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, these second round matchups are harder than the first round matchups. Yeah. They should be.
They should be. Yeah.
Wait till we get to the Final Four, the championship round.
Okay, if you take Ortiz and Ramirez and you have the Orioles' best hitters, Boog Powell and say Frank Robinson. Okay, then whoever's left, you've got Davey Johnson, Brooks Robinson. You can speak to some of these guys better than me.
Mm-hmm.
How do they compare to the rest of the Red Sox guys? Damon, I guess Varitek, Millar. I mean, these guys are kind of role players who ended up, or Damon not so much. He was a good player for a long time, but I mean, you might give the edge to the Orioles there.
Well, I guess that's where I would look at it. I mean, remember you made this comment the first time we looked at all this last time we were on the air. Great pitching stops great hitting in a short series. So I think if you look at the Red Sox staff, I just feel like Schilling may be able to get one game, but I think they're gonna figure him out. I think the Orioles, when they see Palmer, Cuellar, and McNally, right out of the gate, they're gonna have to win one of those games. Otherwise, they might get swept.
From the Red Sox team.
From the Red Sox, yeah. And I don't know that I really don't know that they can do that, especially when you got two crafty lefties are up there on the mound. And obviously they're going to be able to neutralize Ortiz a little bit. And Manny Ramirez, we don't know what we're going to get out of Ramirez. He's a little bit of a head case, so you just never know what you're going to get.
Pretty consistent offensive production, I think.
No, he did have a tremendous season. But to answer your question, Varitek against Eldrod Hendricks, I think that's a wash. I think I would probably go with Hendricks a little bit. Boog Powell, obviously over Millar. Davey Johnson at second base, I think over Mark Bellhorn. Belanger, very light hitting shortstop, but a great. I think he compares to Pokey Reese. Yeah, no, I think they compare with each other.
Orlando Cabrera played a lot too.
He did. Yeah, he did. And I think Brooks Robinson is a no-brainer over Bill Miller. Don Buford, great player. I mean, maybe not the numbers that Manny put up that year, but I'd put him up against Manny, and I'd put Paul Blair up against Johnny Damon pretty regular. Here's another thing you got to remember. I mean, the Orioles. I mean, we're looking at a couple guys here, Merv Rettenman and Andy Etchebarren, and maybe Nathan could check the 1970 Orioles roster for us. If they're going to be playing with the DH, I'm sure there's some other guys there that we might be missing that are going to be in that lineup DHing.
Terry Crowley.
Right.
Chico Salmon.
Salmon. He probably wasn't a...
Kurt Martin, Bobby Grich, Clay Dalrymple.
Okay. Clay Dalrymple, I know him. Bobby Grich was an excellent player.
Dave May.
What was Bobby Grich's record or batting average that year? Does it say?
Bobby Grich, yeah. 211 batting average.
211, okay. All right.
95 at bats.
Okay, not many at bats, all right.
Now we're getting down into less than 50 at bats.
That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Well,
and by the way, Nomar played in the 04 team.
Yeah, they traded him at the All-Star break or midway through the season.
The Red Sox traded him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, kind of to touch on the point you brought up in the last matchup too. The Orioles were back in the World Series in '71.
Correct.
So they had a nice little run there of consistency. The Red Sox that year were kind of a.
It's just probably a more complete team than
their year. And of course, they did get back into 7, but some different pieces.
Right.
And you make a good point too. I didn't mean to throw cold water on that Yankees point, but to your point, they got to the World Series back-to-back years. The Red Sox got there once and won it, and even that year they were down 3-0. If 9 times out of 10 they don't really get to the World Series.
I'm good with the Orioles in 6 games.
Well, and here's another thing that we've really never touched on in any of these matchups. When you get into, and we probably should have mentioned it a little bit in the last one we just discussed, but when you get into a very tight series like this, let's look at the managerial matchup. That's
true.
I mean, you got Terry. Well, I mean, I think that one was probably pretty even. Joe Torre and Girardi, both very good managers. But look here, you got Terry Francona against Earl Weaver. Earl Weaver is arguably one of the greatest managers to ever manage, and I think I would have to give him the nod in that one.
And Terry Francona has built up a nice little managerial resume too.
He has.
He got him back in 07, took the Indians to the World Series.
He did. You're right.
So
I can give you their managerial tendencies if you would like.
Yeah,
stealing second, stealing third, sack bunts, what they like to do.
Well, remember, Earl Weaver would have done more of that because they didn't have the DH. Yeah. Francona probably didn't do a lot of sack bunts.
That is good to look at. I'm not willing to give the ad solely to Weaver.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Well, Joseph, you said Joseph Orioles in 6. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I kind of have to go along with that. I just.
All right.
I don't know.
It seems like you've been leaning Orioles, so that would be the right pick then. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think. I mean, let's face it. The Yankees were one stolen base away from sweeping that series with the Red Sox. I mean, if Dave Roberts, the now current manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, doesn't get on first base and steal second, the Yankees win that game 4, and it's a sweep.
I feel that guy was always a little couldn't get him out. He was still bases. He never really got a solid hit. I don't think in this.
Here's something you have to consider too: the Orioles players would feel right at home playing at Fenway Park as it existed.
That's true.
The Red Sox players wouldn't know what to do with Memorial Stadium.
That's true.
Because most of them,
was it deep? Was it deep?
Well, no, I'm just saying it'd be a new atmosphere.
Yeah, the Memorial Stadium. Yeah.
I'm not going to say none of them played there because I think its last year was '91.
May have been.
I think Kurt Schilling was around. Yeah.
I can find out for you.
I'm not sure if he played there, but some of these guys were around. But yeah.
Memorial Stadium is 445 to center.
Yeah, it's deep.
It's pretty deep.
446 to the gaps.
Wow.
And then 309 to left and right. Closed 1997. I don't know when they stopped playing there.
They played football there. The Ravens did.
Okay, yeah.
I think
here we go. Orioles.
91, yeah.
91.
Yeah.
Schilling might have played there, Pedro, but yeah. So I'm good with the Orioles.
I think the deepness has an effect too.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
the depth, I should say.
I think it does have an effect. I mean, you look at Fenway Park and
I was going to say center field, especially Johnny Damon, not known for his defense really,
right?
Especially not his arm.
That's right.
So if he just has to, track down balls on 440 feet away. He may need Manny to cut him off again.
And we know that Manny can do that, right? He definitely cut him off.
The Red Sox team does seem, the more I hear you guys talk about it, they did seem a little like, not fluky, but like, what's going to happen? Like, anything could happen.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right.
They didn't
Right.
seem like a consistent powerhouse type of team.
And I know I mentioned the fact that the 70 Baltimore Orioles didn't have to face, their pitching staff didn't have to face designated hitters, but if you look at the bullpen, they only had one pitcher with a 4 or greater ERA in the bullpen. The Red Sox had, two of them, Timlin and Embry, who had over 4, and Scott Williamson 1.26, but not many innings. But all those guys on the Orioles side had a lot of innings, and they were the ones with the lower ERA. So, I tend to agree with that. I think I would have to go with the 70 Orioles, and I think 4-2 is probably right.
Okay.
Sounds
good.
All right, so we have an advance there. The 1970 Baltimore Orioles. So I guess to steal a term from basketball, we've gone chalk in the American League. Our semifinals on the American League now will be the number 1 seed, 1998 New York Yankees, winning 4-3 over the 09 Yankees, advancing to the semifinals to face the 1970 Baltimore Orioles, the 2 seed. They advanced over the 04 Boston Red Sox 4-2. So our American League side is set. Again, jump on Twitter at PressBoxPod. Let us know what you think about that analysis. Give us your ideas and your opinions. Let's take a look at the National League. Let me give you a bit of a recap. We started off with the number 1 seed, 1975 Cincinnati Reds, taking on the 8 seed Atlanta Braves from 1995. The 1995 Atlanta Braves advanced 4-2 in an upset. We then had the number 4 seed 2012 San Francisco Giants taking on the 2019 Washington Nationals, the 5th seed. We advanced the 2009 Washington Nationals 4-3 over the Giants. In the bottom half of the bracket, we had the number 2 seed 1986 New York Mets taking on the 7th seed 2008 Philadelphia Phillies. We had the New York Mets of 86 advancing 4-3 there. And then the number 3 seed Chicago Cubs of 2016 taking on the 6th seed 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks. We advanced the 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks 4-3 there. That sets up our quarterfinals in the National League. The 8th seed 1995 Atlanta Braves taking on the 5th seed 2019 Washington Nationals, and the 6th seed 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the 2nd seed 1986 New York Mets. So Joseph, let's get started there.
All right, we'll start with the first matchup.
Okay.
The 8 seed 95 Braves won 90 games, lost 54, first in the NL East. Won the divisional series 3-1 over the Colorado Rockies. Won the championship series 4-0, swept it over the Cincinnati Reds. And they won the World Series 4-2 of the Cleveland Indians. They're facing off against the 5th seed 2019 Washington Nationals, who won 93 games, lost 69, second in the NL East. They had to win the wild card game. They beat the Brewers in that game. Won the divisional series 3-2 over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Swept the championship series 4-0 over the St. Louis Cardinals. And they won the World Series 4-3 over the Houston Astros. Who knew what pitchers were coming?
Correct. Who knew what pitchers were going?
Got to throw it in there.
That's right, we do.
All right. So this matchup, I think, one thing to consider here, I know the Braves are an 8th seed, but we just did that by number of wins, where you can't, you don't really know what happened throughout that season.
Right.
Maybe
they had injuries, I don't know.
There were injuries, some guys took days off, whatever. So you can't really treat them like a typical, like you think of NCAA tournament, 16th seed or something like that. Very formidable team, and you have to compare that to how much of this Nationals team in 2019 was that they got hot at the right time.
Right.
Like, were they really that great? Because they started the season, I think it was through May, had a losing record or something. I don't know their exact record through May, but and they got hot down the stretch. So, right off the bat, I think the Braves are maybe a better team, especially with what they did all through the 90s and just culminating in 95. But pitching wise, we touched on the dominance of Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz in the last round. Strasburg and Scherzer aren't in shop liver either. I mean, Scherzer, I think he's throwing 2 no-hitters. I believe. Strasburg, a very good pitcher when he's on in his own right. And then you have Corbin and Sanchez who can give you good performances.
Right.
You still got to give it to the Braves. You have 3 Hall of Famers there.
Yeah.
But it's not as one-sided as some other matchups.
It looks like it said the Nationals were 19-31 at one point.
Okay.
Yeah, they were. And I'll mention something here that adds to the point that you started with there. The reason the Braves of 95 only had 90 wins is that season started late. Remember, there was a strike in 94, which eliminated the whole half of the second half of the season, and there was no World Series in 94. The 95 season, there was still a strike. There was still a lockout, okay? So they only played 144 games, all right? So the Braves were 90-54. If you take the last 18 games and extrapolate out their winning percentage, they probably win 102 or 103 ball games.
Let's figure that out. That's a good point. It's an excellent point.
So divide 90 by 144, and then multiply that by 18.
Yeah, by 162.
No, you got to look at the percentage of wins that they got in the first 144 games. 90.
Right, but I'm saying if you take that win percentage and times it by 162, you get 101 wins.
All right, same thing. Yeah. It would have worked the same way. I was just trying to apply it to the games they had left. But yeah, so 101 wins, and where would that have put them? I think that would have put them probably at like the 3rd seed.
We're going to put them high. Let's see here.
I think it would have put them at least
3rd. Well, because the
well, the Mets had 108. Diamondbacks had 92.
Cubs had 103.
Right.
All right, yeah. So the 75 Reds won 108. 86 Mets won 108.
Right.
In the 2016 Cubs won 103, so they would have been right after that, the 4th seed.
Okay, so they would have been the 4th seed instead of the 8th seed.
Yeah.
Which means that they would have started out playing probably the Giants, because the 2012 Giants would have been the 5th seed. So yeah, and again, it doesn't. Yeah. We don't have to go into all what would have been there, but the point I was trying to make, which I think you started to make, was that this is not a typical 8th seeded team. Okay, that's what you were trying to say. Yeah. And you look at the 3 Hall of Famers on that staff. Gosh, I just find it hard to believe that those guys are going to get beat 4 times. I just don't see it happening. And like you said, I think you made an excellent point. How much of the Nationals winning the 2019 World Series was just that they got hot at the right time, Once they won that wild card game over the Brewers, which could have gone either way, they just caught fire.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's a better argument than the staff getting beat 4 times, because they did get beat 4 times in 96 and 99.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know if Smoltz is closing in 99. I have to look that up, but in 93 or whatever.
But remember who they were playing. They were playing a Yankee team that was on the verge of a dynasty.
Yeah.
But you're right. It did happen.
Smoltz.
But let's look at it legit. Let's look at the matchup. I mean, you got Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz, and let's look at the Nationals lineup. I mean, outside of Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto, was there anybody in that lineup that you feared?
Not really.
Not really.
Like I said, they just got hot.
They got hot. Howie Kendrick got real hot in the playoffs. Yeah. But there was nobody else in that lineup that you'd be saying, hey, I think we got to pitch around these guys. Okay? Yeah. And you got 3 Hall of Fame pitchers pitching against that lineup. Okay? Yeah. Then you look at the other side of it. I mean, look at the Braves lineup. If you're Strasburg and Scherzer, and then Corbin is your number 3 starter, I mean, look at the Braves lineup. I mean, David Justice, you kind of fear him. Klesko had power at any particular time. Chipper Jones, Fred McGriff, Lemke and Blauser were like little gnats that you never could get out. And Javi Lopez. I mean, the guy was a pretty good hitter. So. And then let's look at the closers. I mean, the closers were pretty equal, but Wohlers, I think, was actually a little bit better closer. If I'm not mistaken, it took the Nationals a while to really settle on their closer last year. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards the Braves.
It wasn't Fernando Rodney. Did he not close?
He did a little bit, yeah, but he was so unpredictable.
Yeah, I'd have to give it to the Braves too here. I mean, I could see a potential of a 5-game series, maybe 6.
I could too. I mean, I could too. So we agree, the Braves?
Yeah.
All right. So the 1995 Braves. They will advance as the 8th seed. And again, remember, and tell us if you agree with that analysis. They're really not an 8th seed. I mean, they're probably at least a 4 seed, and you could even make an argument.
And I'd give the managerial edge to Bobby Cox over David
I would definitely do that, yeah. And what did we say, 4 games to 2 or 3? I'd say 4.
We said either 4 games to 1 or 4 games to 2.
All right. I'm willing to, I think you probably could get 2 wins out of that national staff, don't you?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go 4 games to 2. All right, so now let's look at our other matchup, our final matchup in the quarterfinal round. And that will take us to...
What do you got, Nathan?
Go ahead, Nathan.
All right, we have the 6th-seeded 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks. They won 92 games, lost 70, first in the NL West. Won the divisional series 3 games to 2 over the St. Louis Cardinals. Won the championship series 4 games to 1 over the Atlanta Braves, and won the World Series 4 games to 3 over the Yankees. And they're facing off against the 2nd-seeded 1986 New York Mets, who won 108 games, lost 54, first in the NL East. And they won the championship series 4 games to 2 over the Houston Astros, and they won the World Series 4 games to 3 over the Boston Red Sox. And if you want to talk about managers again here, the manager of the 01 Diamondbacks was Bob Brinley. Manager of the 86 Mets, Davey Johnson.
Right.
You can go ahead and lead us off here.
Okay. Right out of the gate, I'm going to give the managerial edge to Davey Johnson. I mean, he was around a lot longer, managed a lot of teams. Brenly just caught lightning in a bottle. You know, I mean, that was pretty much his claim to fame there in that season. So I give the edge to Davey Johnson.
But Mets Davey Johnson hadn't done all the other stuff yet. Was that his first managerial job?
It could be, yeah. That's true.
I still agree with that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
What time period are you thinking of for him that he did something really good?
Davey Johnson? Well, he's been around a long time.
Yeah, that was probably his first.
Well, he won 108 games that year, 100 games in 88. After that,
What was his first year as
What
manager?
was his first year as a manager?
84.
Okay.
With the Mets.
Yeah.
He managed the Mets through 90, the Reds 93 through 95, Orioles 96, 97, Dodgers 99, 2000, Nationals 11, 12, 13.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's look at let's always start with the pitching matchups. I think that's the thing to start with. I think you tell me if you're wrong with my initial idea here. I look at the 2001 Diamondbacks. I had no problem giving them the edge over the 2016 Cubs in the first round. But I look at that team and, you know, they had, it was all they could do to beat the Yankees in that World Series. I mean, you remember it, right? I mean, they won the first 2 at home with Schilling and Johnson. Yeah. The Yankees took the next 3. Randy Johnson basically shut down the Yankees in Game 6, and they lost like 15-3. Yeah. You know, Messina got rocked. But then Game 7, the Yankees had that game. I mean, they Soriano hits the home run in the 8th inning. Rivera shuts them down in the bottom of the 8th. I mean, pretty much the Yankees almost won that series. I say that to say that outside of Schilling and Johnson, and we had this discussion a little bit in the last round, their lineup doesn't fear me. I mean, Luis Gonzalez is the only guy that you look at the stats and you look at, hey, you know, he worries me. But then you look at the Mets, you could bring in Jesse Orosco to face him if you needed to in a key situation. And I don't think he's going to hit a bunch of home runs off Bob Ojeda and Sid Fernandez if they're facing him. So
let's face it, you're determined to not have any team who bested the Yankees move on in this bracket.
All right, well,
no, I'm not. I'm just trying
to. Talking about the series, I mean, the Mets should have lost their series. But Buckner let the ball go through his leg.
Well, that's true.
I mean, they were one routine grounder away from losing that series.
You're exactly right. No, you're exactly right.
So, you know, I don't know.
This podcast is a friend of Bill Buckner's. Nothing against him.
No, this podcast loves Bill Buckner, and I'm finally glad he got his due. He was welcomed into Fenway Park.
Here, so I think the series playing out as a wash. But I will say that, you know, that in the 86 season, not career-wise, but that season, Dwight Gooden was just about as dominant as you can get.
Okay.
So he can cancel Schilling out as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know, and then you're left with, I think, more good pitchers on the Mets staff, right?
Right.
As opposed to Randy Johnson, who's better than any of those guys, but
correct.
It's only one of them.
Correct.
So, I mean, you're basically, again, relying on Schilling and Johnson to win you the whole series.
Correct.
As opposed to, you know, you're going to have some games where you're not going to get great starting performances, most likely, out of the Diamondbacks. You're going to have to go to the bullpen fairly early.
Right. That's right. And I agree with that. And we saw what their bullpen looked like, you know, in the World Series in the games 3, 4, and 5, and in Game 7.
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to agree with that. I think the Mets pitching staff overall is probably is way stronger than the Diamondbacks, with Randy Johnson being the only guy that I would say is better than any of the Mets pitchers, if you had to get to that. But then let's look at the lineups. I mean, again, you got to look at lineups, and I think, Luis Gonzalez is the guy that had the career year. There's nobody else in that lineup that really you'd fear. I mean, maybe Reggie Sanders, because he had a pretty good year. But then the Mets lineup is kind of the same. I mean, aside from Gary Carter and Darryl Strawberry, you had some guys that were crafty veterans that were clutch players like Keith Hernandez and Wally Backman, Lenny Dykstra. Their stats maybe didn't look that great, although Hernandez and Backman both hit over 300. Dykstra hit 295. You look at the Diamondbacks, Mark Grace hit 298. That was about it. The rest of the guys were kind of in the middle there. The Mets had Mookie Wilson and Kevin Mitchell coming off the bench, both pretty good ball players. The Diamondbacks had Craig Counsell with that weird batting stance and Danny Bautista. So, and then you look at closers, McDowell versus Byung-Hyun Kim. I think this is a 7-game series because of Johnson and Schilling, but I would say the Mets in 7.
The 01 Diamondbacks know Shea Stadium, but the 86 Mets don't know Bank One Ballpark.
No, they don't. But remember, Bank One Ballpark would be more conducive to the Mets because they would close it, right? It would be closed occasionally during the World Series.
They could do whatever they wanted.
They could do whatever they wanted. That's true. Yeah,
Diamondbacks could.
Well, I guess in '86, were there any other domes outside of
it was the Expos
the
had a
Astrodome?
dome. Expos.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? I mean, I'm willing to go. I'm willing to concede to your opinion if you disagree with it. If you give me the reasons.
If you give me the reasons.
If you give me the reasons.
In which case, I'll shoot him down because they'd be the
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the tougher ones we've had. They are pretty similar teams.
Well, let's break it down this way. The series would start in New York, right? So, Game 1, you'd have to say would be Dwight Gooden against Curt Schilling.
Kind of a toss-up, yeah.
Okay, so we would say Dwight Gooden probably would win that one.
And you said the A's have a better lineup, probably, right? Top to bottom.
A's?
I mean,
the insight only Nathan can provide. Nice.
They did have the better lineup, but they didn't make this bracket.
the Mets have a better lineup, you're saying, right? So,
well, let's take it game by game. All right, so Dwight Gooden against Schilling at Shea Stadium.
I say a toss-up. You give Gooden because he's at home.
Okay, so that's 1-0 Mets. Now, Game 2 in Shea would be Randy Johnson, probably against Ron Darling.
That's Randy Johnson.
All right, so now we're 1-1 going back to Arizona. So now we got Brian Anderson against Bob Ojeda. I mean, what do you think? Toss-up?
Maybe, I don't know. Ojeda won 18 games that year. I mean,
Right.
Brian Anderson won 4.
Right. So,
I mean, you got to give the edge to
yeah, and I mean, and who are you going to choose from? Anderson won 4, Ellis won 4, Lopez won 4.
Yeah.
So I think you got to give the edge to Ojeda. So it's 2-1 Mets. Game 4, you're looking at probably Robert Ellis or Albie Lopez against Sid Fernandez.
they could always skip one of those guys.
They'd bring back Schilling in Game 4.
Or they could always skip Ellis or Lopez and bring in Armando Reynoso.
All right, let's say you bring back Schilling in Game 4, okay? So now you got Schilling against Sid Fernandez.
Short rest, probably.
On short rest.
Oh, wait, 1. Yeah, 3 days rest.
All right, let's even give him that one. Now it's 2-2. Now we go to Game 5, Randy Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's give him that one. So now we're going to go back to New York with the Diamondbacks up 3-2, and you're going to be facing Dwight Gooden and Ron Darling against either Brian Anderson, Robert Ellis Lopez, and Schilling. But again, Schilling now would be playing. He would be way less effective if you went with Game 7. So, one or two things could happen. It could play out just like the Diamondback series with the Yankees, where Schilling gives them 8 strong innings, but the Mets go ahead, and then something happens. I don't know, but I just don't think that I don't think Schilling. I shouldn't say that because he did it. Yeah. He did it in that World Series. I mean, I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard to say. I mean, it's just hard to say.
What are you gonna say? You don't think he could?
I don't think he could give you 3 World Series starts And he didn't in 2001. Remember, his first one he did. Game 4, the Yankees got to him and knocked him out. And then Game 7, he went 8 strong innings and gave up that home run in the 8th to Soriano, which, I mean, anybody can do that. I mean, he only gave up 2 runs to the Yankees in that game.
I could give up a home run to Soriano.
Yeah, but my point is, he
It's not
didn't.
that hard.
He pitched 8 pretty strong innings in that game on very short rest. You know.
Yeah, look it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
And who's to say the Mets don't throw good in 3 times?
that's true. Look, I think as much as I like Schilling and Randy Johnson, something about the Diamondbacks lineup seemed just kind of like.
I was looking through just now because I was.
No, and I'm not saying these guys are bad players, but like when you look at that whole year, it's kind of like.
How did they win the World Series?
How did they? The Mets seem like the safer pick to me. Like you could, when it comes down to a Game 7, like we said, maybe trust those guys a little more. You know, I don't know.
And then let's look at something we discussed on 2 previous matchups. The 2000 up until 2001, the Diamondbacks really weren't anybody, and after that, they weren't anybody. Okay, the Mets were strong in '84, '85. They went to the NL Championship Series. '87, they got to the NL Championship Series. Or the divisional series. '88, they lost to the Dodgers in the National League Championship Series.
Look at the Diamondbacks. I know they got to the playoffs somewhere around those times. I mean,
yeah, I can look it up here. The 2002 Diamondbacks lost the divisional series 3 games to 0 to the Cardinals.
Okay.
03 Diamondbacks didn't make the playoffs.
How about the 2000 Diamondbacks?
The 2000 Diamondbacks
99, 2000.
Didn't make the playoffs.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then 99, they lost to the Mets 3 games to 1 in the divisional series.
Okay.
And then 98,
They were the expansion team in 98.
Yeah, they were expansion.
Yeah.
No excuse not make the playoffs though.
I know. I'm okay with the Mets in 7 games,
Okay.
but you could also talk me into the other way. But we'll say Mets.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too. I mean, you could talk, like I told you, you could have talked me into the other way as well. All right, so the 1986 New York Mets, 4 games to 3. They were the 2 seed. So our
4 games to 3 in extra innings.
Yeah, exactly. Our National League semifinals are set. It'll be the 1995 Atlanta Braves, the 8th seed, taking on the 1986 New York Mets. We will be who were the 2 seeds. So should be an interesting semifinal matchup that we'll get back to you on Monday. And excited about this. And Nathan, what are your thoughts about our final 4 teams? The Braves, the Mets, the Orioles, and the Yankees.
You can give us thoughts.
Strong team. I'd say strong to very strong.
Strong to very strong.
Yeah.
If you had, but let me. If
they're all pretty much top seeds, right? I mean, we talked about the Braves; they're pretty much the top seed.
Everybody's a top seed except the Braves, which we said probably could have been a top seed.
Yeah,
That's
if we didn't go strictly by the wins, we would have put them probably top.
Right.
So what were you asking me?
No, I was just saying you've heard all the analysis that's been bannered back and forth. So if you had to pick your final 2 teams, who would you pick? And it doesn't have to be based on anything; just your gut feeling.
Who I would pick or who I think you're going to pick?
No, who you would pick?
Okay. I would pick. Well, I know even less about the '70 Orioles team than Joseph does. I'd pick the '98 Yankees, and I'd pick the '95 Braves.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yankees because of just that was like in the middle of one of the best probably dynasties of all time, and the Braves solely because of the pitching staff.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
We will see.
we will see. So
how this bracket plays out.
yes, well, remember, let me remind everybody again, hop on our Twitter account at PressBoxPod. There'll be a bracket there. We want your opinion. Probably before our next show, we'll definitely put up a poll. Since now we're down to our final 4, we want to get your opinion on who you think is going to come through there to the championship matchup. So, jump on our Twitter account at PressBoxPod, and we certainly appreciate you listening.